again, thank you for coming. I want to start my portion of the program, which is going to be very short. But I want to introduce you to the matriarch and the visionary of Leading with Power, my wife, Terry Tompkins. And I wanted her to stand by me so that you could see that her dress and my tie match. I don't know if this will be in the Harley's tenets or rules, but wear whatever she tells you to wear, gentlemen. And I want to thank Terry. She put together a nice team, including Lisa Clay and Ann Simonson and Judy Haley. And I understand Beth Arneberg is going to participate later on tonight. That put this room together and made it look different than it does for us guys at lunch. I just want you to know that. So give them a hand. A little bit about Leading with Power. We are a sanctioned nonprofit organization. We have an executive board. We are accountable for what we do. I've invited guys to come to Leading with Power and they say, you know, I'm not really that into organized religion. And I say, well, you'll love this because we're not religious and we're not particularly organized. but that's really not true. Thanks to the efforts of the men I want to introduce and have them stand. Our executive council includes Tom Arneberg, please stand, Bread Man, James Kirkin, our treasurer, Terry Huppert, and Anthony Schmolt, please stand. This is your Breadmen Executive Council. You can stay standing if you'd like. And I would like you to. I know. Got to choose my words more carefully. I want to also recognize a vital Breadman, Dan Fashionbauer, is back there on the video. And through Dan's efforts, our presentations are now available for you to look at online anytime. We have almost all of our past presentations, and the one tonight will be available at leadingwithpower.org. Thanks to Don Byrne from Post House Video for donating the equipment, and then Dan Fashionbauer has been filming and editing, and that's a huge asset for us. So give him a thanks. Carl, our caterer, and the team, Kim and Tasha. Carl, come out here and take a bow. Carl takes great care of us. He's a bread man. He's a bread and meat man. Don Anderson, please stand up. Our hospitality chairman extraordinary, bread man. Rich Ward, stand up. Dave Bishop. Dave runs our sound and audio every month. Like a trooper, like a champ. Mark Alderson is a tremendous asset to Leading with Power and a valuable bread man. I want to recognize the guys from Gordy's County Markets, generous donations. You know, I think you can figure out that this evening would not cost $40 a couple without the generous donations of a lot of people. So this is a heavily subsidized event, and I'll just say this, we don't ever solicit funds, but we've never been known to turn them down either. So any additional breadmen that I've overlooked, which I fear doing, if you're on the breadmen list, when we send out an email, please stand up. More breadmen. Anybody? Breadmen. Oh, Stu and Libby Krause have been fantastic contributors to our graphics, all of our posters, our invite cards, every month. All right, you can sit down. I said sit down. Okay, you asked for this. We're excited to announce a few things here. First of all, next month, I couldn't be more thrilled. Tom Arneberg is going to be our guest speaker for Leading with Power at our lunch meeting, talking about raising modern day knights, and I can't think of a better guy to talk about that subject. So tell your friends, it's going to be spectacular. Another huge announcement we couldn't be more thrilled to announce is starting in September of 2015, Leading with Power is expanding to the La Crosse area. And they will be on Wednesdays and our meetings will be on Thursdays. So if you know people in the La Crosse area, I think they're just going to blow it out of the water down there. They understand the vision and they're getting behind it, and we couldn't be more thrilled. And The vision of Leading with Power is very simple. It's, and we believe we've been led to this, to keep it simple, keep it fun, treat men with kindness and generosity. And another tenet of Leading with Power is that readers lead and leaders read. And that's why I want to draw your attention to the bookmarks that are on the table. One of the things that we do is we offer hope and encouragement to men. And one of our obstacles to that are men can get discouraged. And I want to just tell you that discouragement is a lie. The circumstances that might lead to discouragement are very real. The circumstances, health issues, challenges, whether it's international terrorism or national malaise or domestic conflict, those are real things that can get a man down. But if it ends up in discouragement, that's a lie. And one of the reasons that we get discouraged is because we lose sight of who we are. And on the back of that bookmark, I want you to take a look at that, and you can take those home with you, and I have additional copies if anybody wants them. It's a reminder of our true identity, and something I recommend the guys read every day to be reminded of who they are and how this is all going to come out in the end. Another thing that husbands and wives here tonight both face is the reality, this is truth, of exhaustion. And one of the reasons we're exhausted is because we're chasing the wind. It's like a dog chasing his tail. We've got so many priorities and we stay busy doing all kinds of things. And I'm just encouraging you to consider to simplify your life. One of our great speakers and a great book I recommend is Contentment by Dr. Richard Swenson. And in that book, he'll give you a path toward simplifying your life and being able and willing to say no to some things. Because exhaustion is real. So we're encouraging you to tap into the resources that we have. We thank you for coming. And I'm going to introduce again Rich and Terry to come up. And they're going to finish giving away all our big prizes. And we couldn't be more thrilled that you're here. Thanks for coming.
For those of you that don't know, or maybe if you were here last Leading with Power night like this, we kind of stepped through our lives as a married couple, our lives as we divorced, our lives after the divorce, and then our lives as we remarried, and then our lives now. And so it was kind of a sad story that turned into a really cool story, and continues to this day to be a really awesome story. We were then asked several times to go on the radio and share it on WWIB, you know, and I thought a 10-minute thing, but it was the 1-hour front page show, and it was long, but it was good. Mark does just a tremendous job with that, and so Kathy and I did that, and then we thought, okay, we're done with that. Well, the Keith says, let's go to lacrosse and share it at the Leading with Power lacrosse. Okay, we'll go do that. So we went and we did it again, and Kathy had this, I don't call it a feeling, but she had a desire, or she's tempted to maybe talk about what good things in marriages can help marriages before they turn into bad marriages. You know, what kind of things can I do as a dad or a husband, and what kind of things can she do as a mom or a sister or a teacher? You know, what kind of good things can we do where this marriage will thrive, and then we don't have to tell our divorce story. And we don't have to talk about how bad things are at home. And we ran across Leading with Power. Kathy ran across Leading with Power website, and we're marriage builders. We are Leading with Power. I ran across Leading with Power. Leading with Power, marriage builders. No, I ran across that, but anyway, marriage builders, and marriagebuilders.com. She ran across that. She was really impressed with the resources that were available, the fact that you can email them questions and they respond back to you. I even think, did you get a phone call once too? Yep, we found it all through actually the radio station. And found out there was resources available, and we thought, Kathy's idea, let's have a marriage builders class at our home. You know, let's throw it out there and encourage couples that want to come and maybe listen to this lesson and maybe make their marriages become a little tighter, just a little better. You know, it's been said before, but there's a lot of C+ relationships out there. A lot of C+, which is not bad. It's better than average, but when my daughter gets a C+, what I usually do is we usually counsel with her and encourage her to do more work, put more energy into her work. And when she does that, that C+ usually is an easier B or B+ or A. And I'm thinking in the marriage, it's exactly the same thing. C+ relationship, not enough effort or not the right effort. And then with effort put forth, then it turns into an A marriage or an A+ marriage. So, you know, and these are the things we're finding. We got 13 couples that comes over to our house every other Sunday night. We talk about just some really great things that are in the book. His needs, her needs, and I got a couple of really good jokes, but I'm not going to tell them. I'm not going to tell them. I'm not going to tell them. Yep, that's sign of maturity. Sign of maturity. Okay, there's a Jew, a rabbi, and no, I'm not going to tell you one. But we were just so excited to see that the Harleys were going to come to this event, and we got our group that meets in our home right here. We met them for a little bit at the hotel. And my message to you guys, if you are considering leading marriage builders class, you know, strongly consider, because I got to tell you guys a couple things. One is, it's not a Bible study. Not that a Bible study is bad, but if you say, you know, I really don't want to get into a Bible study, that's fine. This is not a Bible study. It's principles of marriage and how to make it work better, written by a wonderful Christian couple, but it's not a Bible study. We do add a little bit into ours with some prayer requests, and some people will, you know, bring up some verses. So it's not a Bible study. The second thing is you don't have to lead it. You know, you can facilitate it. You can have your home clean, your home ready. We make popcorn and some cookies, and you know, it's just kind of real casual. If Rachel comes, we make a lot of popcorn and a lot of cookies. Thank you. And you know, but it really is it's just kind of a casual night. We listen, we read, we listen, we answer questions, we pray, and it just seems like there's always one of the discussions that affects one of the couples just a little different way than the rest of us, and so we get into that in kind of a deeper way, and it's just awesome. For some reason, they hit the nail on the head with just about everything they've talked about and brought up. So, any of you guys are considering either coming to one of the classes or are considering leading one of the classes, facilitating one of the classes, I would strongly encourage you to do it. You know, you could even come over to our house one of the nights. Our next one is Sunday at 5 o'clock. I forget what chapter we're on, but it doesn't matter. You can see how it flows, and it's pretty cool. So, I'll be around after dinner if anybody has any questions.
All right, yeah, hi, Mark Alverson from WWIB, WOGO Radio, so great to see you here tonight. And I guess I kind of, reflecting a little bit in terms of Bill and Joyce Harley and broadcasting, it's interesting because with the Wards and their story and sharing it for some of you here last year, I mean, kind of the journey with Rich and Kathy, I mean, not all long ago they were like, wow, I never heard of this website. And now they're leading this growing marriage group and it's multiplying. So you never know what can happen to you between now and next year. My parents had been married 21 years, and on a Friday night in June of '83, my dad came to my mom and said he didn't love her anymore. He didn't have any feeling for her. And it turned out he was in the midst of an affair. And remember, I was out east selling books, and my mom called me on a Sunday night, and she told me what happened. And so they got divorced, and I think I got commitment phobia. I mean, I was like, through my 20s and in my 30s, I'm like, marriage and relationships, you know, I'd either blow them up or, you know, whatever, the girl would run away. And so, it wasn't until I was, you know, 33, ultimately 34 when I got married, And but I've had a heart certainly for marriages to see them saved. And so, and yet even our marriages, I mean, as much as we love our spouse, I mean, you know, that saying that marriage is the closest thing to heaven or hell you experience on earth. Maybe you've been there. And so it's a lot more fun when it's closer to heaven. But the fact is, at one point in our marriage, several years in, we're going through a tough time. And through our church, there was a couple that agreed to talk to us, and they told us about how difficult things had been for them, and gave us some clear examples of that. And then they talked about the Harleys, and they talked about some of these books that are up here, like Love Busters, and you know, and then they also talked about His Needs, Her Needs, and so that was helpful and encouraging. And just this week, social media, we all know each other's lives way better than we used to. And so just this week I saw them posting on Facebook about how great their marriage is and how connected they are and the soulmate stuff. And I know the rest of the story. I know where they came from. I know the valley they've been through. And I know that how much the Harley's material helped them. And again, as a guy whose parents' marriage ended because of infidelity and other things, the fact is, when you look at the Harley site, it's been touted already, marriagebuilders.com, the #1 infidelity support site. I mean, they're there trying to pull marriages back, say it doesn't matter what, you know, it can be saved, it can be rescued. And you're going to hear something tonight, I think, from Bill along those lines that's going to demystify love. You know, Valentine's Day's coming up, and we got all this stuff societally. It's Cupid and the arrows, and love is this feeling. I fell in love, but he helped me, and I think countless others, the idea of putting a handle on it. And you should leave tonight having a better understanding of what it means for you to be in love with your spouse, and your spouse in love with you or your significant other, more than you ever had before. So I can't wait for you to meet Bill and Joyce Harley.
Oh, I think this is what heaven is going to be like. This has been fantastic. Bill and I are so delighted to be invited by all of you, and we have a wonderful 3 hours planned for you. Bill, I think they like the idea. Shall we go ahead? No, you've been sitting for a long time. Before I introduce Bill, I want you, now, if you will be ruly about this, don't get carried away. What I want you to do, now listen closely, and then I'll give you 5 seconds to do it. I want you to stand in a minute, and you are to rub the back of your wife. And then you're going to twist around, and you are to rub the back of your husband. It's called a massage. And if you didn't come with either a wife or a husband, you don't get to do it. Okay? So, and when I say it's done, you have to be quiet and sit down. And then we're going to get started. Is that clear? Okay. Am I being demanding? I love it. Okay, stand up and let's go for it. Okay? Husbands, rub the wife's back. Husbands, rub the wife. It's my pleasure now to introduce my husband, Dr. Bill Harley. I want to give you some background as far as what qualifies him to be doing what he is doing. Bill is a professor at first, and you're going to see this at his presentation. He taught at Westmont College in Santa Barbara, California, where we're from, and also at Bethel University in St. Paul. That's what brought us to Minnesota. Then he opened 32 mental health clinics in Minnesota called the Harley Clinics of Minnesota, appropriately. After that, he decided he was going to go to full-time writing, and he's written 20 books on marriage. The first book was His Needs, Her Needs. And it wasn't until he was on Sally Jesse Raphael, who was the Oprah Winfrey of her time, when she held up Bill's book, His Needs, Her Needs, and said, if I had had this book, it would have saved me from a host of heartache in my marriage. It went crazy. It sold over 4 million copies. It's in 21 languages. I didn't know there were 21 languages. And then the rest is history. And 20 books later, the message is being shared so beautifully. Bill and I do a daily radio show. I've been in radio for many years, and we finally have teamed together. I produce, I host, he co-hosts too. And he brings his expertise. And you can hear it every day. We don't compete with Mark. If you have the Marriage Builders app, you can listen whenever you want. Listen when Mark's not on, okay? And of course, we love being on with Mark. First Monday of every month, it started with Draw Close. And he just said, hey, would you like to keep doing it? We said, we sure would. It's fun to be on the other side of being interviewed rather than being the interviewer. Many people say, how did you and Joyce meet, Bill? And I said, well, we met in high school. Excuse me, I was 13, and Bill was 14, and we both lived in Santa Barbara, California. And it was at a beach party. But it was at a church beach party. And I was wearing this bathing suit with little kittens all over it. And he should have known then there'd be cats in my life, the entire married life. And he knew right then that I was the one for him. It took me a while to be convinced, but I did. At 19, when I was 19, and Bill was 21, we married. We have 2 children, and they're both singers, as I am, and they're both psychologists, and they work with Marriage Builders. And between the 2 of them, we have 4 grandchildren. And the youngest, who is 19, and the only boy is getting married in May. I'm so excited. I might be a great grandma someday. This is great. So with no further ado, I would like to introduce to you the love of my life, my husband for 52 years, Dr. Bill Harley.
Introduction. Are we all set? Yeah, she is my very best introducer. To say nothing about the fact that she is the love of my life as well. I want to make sure we get out on time, so I'll put my watch here so that I make sure I'm not just going ahead and talking as I would like to be able to do. I'm going to keep this succinct, pithy, if I can. I'm going to try to get through as much material as possible. I know that your speakers generally are not given as much time as I've been given. This is very generous, but we will be out of here in an hour, or at least I will be done in an hour. Okay. So we'll see if we can keep to that schedule. A pastor in the Twin Cities referred a couple to me. He'd been working with them for probably 6 months and so. And the wife had told him that she's planning to divorce her husband, that the counseling he was doing wasn't working, and so they were basically on the road to divorce. And so they came into my office and they were sitting in the waiting room. And when I counsel a couple, I never see them together in the beginning. And usually it takes a while before I ever see them together. I talk to them separately because I don't want them to fight, which is what couples do when they come in for marriage counseling. I want them to be respectful to each other, and if they're together describing their problems, they tend to fight. So I taught them separately. I said, who wants to be first? Came out the waiting room. They weren't sitting together. One was sitting at one end, the other was sitting at the other end. Joan decided to come in first. So she sat down, and she said, I know our pastor referred us to you, and he was hoping that he could save the marriage, but quite frankly, Dr. Harley, I will be getting a divorce. And I came here simply because I felt that I respect our pastor and I was willing to take this step, but it's not going to help. And I said, well, tell me what you're up against. And she said, well, my husband mostly ignores me, but when he does talk to me, he's belittling, he makes fun of me, and he's extremely critical. He always tells me what I'm doing wrong. I never get any credit for anything. And he is the worst thing that's ever happened to me in life. And Dr. Harley, even though I'm a Christian and I shouldn't be doing this, I hate him. I want him out of my life completely. So then I brought her husband, Mike, in, and he sat down, and I said, Mike, tell me what's going on. And he said, well, I have married a woman who is just incredibly lazy. She gets up at 10 in the morning. She basically, I'm the one that takes care of the kids. I give them breakfast. I send them off to school. She has a little job at noon where she works as a waitress. She takes the money, spends it on whatever she wants. When I come home at night, the kids are running wild. I am just the only person they really got in this marriage, and she is often in her room watching television while we're all having dinner together. And once in a while, she'll just go out, spend the evening with her friends. I don't know where in the world she's going, and I don't know when she comes. I don't know when to expect her home. This is the worst marriage I've ever had. I know she wants to get a divorce. I'll tell you, Dr. Harley, I wouldn't do anything to stop her. And I asked them both a very, very important question. Were you ever in love? Both of them said, indeed, we were. We were in love. And I thought that this would be the marriage of a lifetime. This would be a dream marriage. But the person I married changed and became somebody that I can't live with anymore. How did Joe and Mike go from loving each other to hating each other? How did that happen? And I might mention, don't bother taking notes. Because I have all of the titles that you'll be seeing on a sheet of paper here that you can take home with you. So I want you to remember what I've said tonight. And so everything that you'll see on the screen, everything I say, is all written down for you. Make sure you come up here and get one of these and take it home with you. So if you see something on the screen and it goes by really fast, don't bother trying to write it down. You can write it, you can see it. But how did this happen? How did this happen? How did a couple that was very much in love come to hate each other? And neither one of them wants to see each other again the rest of their lives. And it's all about the love bank. It's all about the love bank. I created the love bank about, in the early 70s. The concept. When I became aware of the fact that people were divorcing each other, I was living in California, because they fell out of love. They fell out of love. And so I needed to know more about love. I needed to know more about romantic love. I needed to know, how do people fall in love? How do people fall out of love? And this is what I came up with. We all have a love bank. We all have one inside of us. It's the way our emotions keep track of the way people treat us. Think about that a minute. I'm going to give you a second just to let it sink in. The love bank is the way our emotions keep track of the way we're treated by other people. There's an account in the name of everyone we encounter, and they don't necessarily have a name because you don't know what their name is. You just know them. There they are. They sit there in church at that seat all the time, and you never have gotten their name, but that person has an account. And all the people that you went to school with, every person that was ever in your class, all have an account. Every one of you have tens of thousands of accounts in your love banks, in the names or not in the name of people you've encountered. When you associate anyone with good feelings, love units are deposited. So basically what happens is that, let's suppose you feel comfortable around somebody, nothing special, but good. 3 or 4 love units might be deposited. If you feel particularly good, feel if you had a very good encounter with somebody, they treated you very well, you might deposit 7 or 8 love units. Or you might have such a sensational one-time experience with that person, as many 50 love units might be deposited. That's what happened when I saw Joyce for the first time. Oh, wow! 50 love units, all in one time. Well, this is the way love units are deposited. Basically, it depends on how good you feel. If you feel really, really good, lots of love units are deposited. If you feel kind of comfortable, fewer love units are deposited. Now, when you associate that person with bad feelings, love units are withdrawn. So, if you're sort of uncomfortable around somebody, you can't quite put your finger on it, it's they just kind of annoy you a little bit, 3 or 4 love units might be withdrawn. Or, let's suppose the person tells a joke that you don't think is the least bit funny, and as a matter of fact, is very disrespectful of something that you respect yourself, and, then they might withdraw 7 or 8 love units. But if the person does something that is truly crude and bad, like I did once with Joyce, I thought it would be funny if I handed her a bag and told her there were cookies in it, and it turned out to be a snake. Now, think about that for a minute. Think about that for a minute. What would you do if your boyfriend thought giving you a snake would be a funny thing? I imagine I withdrew, would you say, 200 love units? I know her father was about ready to kill me. I know that for a fact. And I did lots of things that withdrew love units when we were dating. That's one of the reasons that I love Joyce. She wasn't doing any withdrawals. I was doing all the withdrawals. So it took me a while to get those negative balances up to neutral, up to 0, because of the stupid things I did. But that's what happens when you do something that upsets the other person. You make love bank withdrawals. Our emotions encourage us to be with somebody when a love bank balance is high. You want to be around people that make you happy, right? And warn us to avoid that person when it's low. That's why I never wanted to break up with Joyce, but she broke up with me 6 times. Because what happened was her emotions were telling me, this guy's bad news. He's doing all kinds of silly things that I just have no idea where he's coming from, but all I know is that I don't want any part of it. Well, her emotions were basically warning her that if this goes on, we don't want to have anything to do with this fellow. And rightfully so. Well, how did Joan and Mike fall in love? Love bank deposits. They did something that Joyce and I used to run a dating service. And we taught people how to have a first date. And so what do you do on a first date? You discover what makes the other person happy. That's a great first date. What do you like to do? What are your best experiences? How do you enjoy yourself? When you're thinking of something fun to do, what is that? It's what you're doing is you're getting information that will help you form a better relationship with that person. Now there's another series of questions that you want to ask about what are your worst experiences. And if I had that kind of a discussion with Joyce before we were very much into our dating experience, she would have told me I don't like snakes. Don't ever give me a snake. And the basic idea is that if I know what makes her happy, and if I know what makes her unhappy, and I then learn to do those things as Mike and Joan did, you can get a person to fall in love with you. And if they're doing the same thing, you fall in love with them. It's a very simple procedure for creating a romantic relationship. After meeting somebody for the first time, you get to know what they like, you get to know what they don't like, you do the things that they like, you avoid the things they don't like. Simple formula for falling in love fast. And they did it. Now, what happened was that Joan liked to shop. Surprise, anybody? She loved shopping. And so Mike, he says, great, let's go shopping. Calls her up and says, hey, would you like to go to the mall with me? And we could just spend some time down there. She said, oh, I'd love to do that. And then she said, well, what do you like to do? Well, I like to go to football games. I like to go to sporting events. Would you like to go with me to a baseball game? Would you like to go with me to a football game? You know, there are a lot of college games in town. Would you like to go with me? Oh, I'd love to go with you. And so basically, they both tried to do what the other guy liked to do. And what do you know? They fell in love. When they deposited 1,000 love units, they became irresistible to each other. Now, 1,000 is an artificial number. But it is true, though, that some people have an easier time falling in love with people than others, so that means that their threshold is much lower. And for other people, it's much higher. But there is a threshold. There is a point at which, when you pass that point, you find the person irresistible. So why did Joan and Mike marry? It was romantic love. The feeling of incredible attraction when 1,000 love units are deposited, or whatever the number happens to be for you. After they fell in love, they wanted to spend their lives with each other. And that's what you feel like. When you're in love, you just never want to give. No matter how you might feel about marriage, no matter how you might feel, and a lot of people nowadays, a lot of young adults nowadays are scared to death of getting married. They've seen what has happened to their friends, they've seen what's happened to their parents, they don't, and they see that things can start out great, but then they can turn out terrible. But when they're in love, they can't let go of the person. They can't let go. They want this person to be with them. They don't want to lose that person. And they thought they would love each other until death. Well, then how did Joan and Mike come to hate each other? Love bank withdrawals. Now, have you all been to Cancun? How many have been to Cancun? All right. You went there on a vacation. They went there on a honeymoon. Honeymoon to Cancun. And they got there. And Mike announced the next morning that I have tickets to go to see the Mayan ruins. How many have seen the Mayan ruins? Did you think they were terrific? How many felt that it would have been better to have just gone to the beach and done a little shopping? Well, that's how Joan felt. Mayan ruins? Are you kidding me? We're in a beautiful place here. It's warm and it's sunshine and there's shopping and there's beach. I mean, I want to go scuba diving. I want to go snorkeling. I want to be out in the ocean. I don't want to go Mayan ruins. You know what you have to do to get to the Mayan ruins? You have to be in a bus for 2 hours. And the air conditioning doesn't always work. And then you get out there and it pours rain. This is not something I think I want to do. So then Mike, he says, well, you know, I really think we should go. Joan, I really think we should go. And Joan says, well, I'm not going. I'm not going. I'm going to go shopping. I'm going to go to the beach. And he says, well, Joan, you know, the reason I want you to go is because your family background has caused you to grow up to be disrespectful to the breadth of culture. And so you need to have more exposure to cultures that you've not been a part of and come to respect it. And when you go to the Mayan ruins, you will appreciate Aztec culture and Mayan culture, and you will be able to see how other people do things and other people think. And so Joan, she looks at Mike and says, you better end this conversation right now. This is not something that I want to talk to you about. There's nothing wrong with my background. I'm just fine. Matter of fact, there's some things about your background that I don't think are all that wonderful. And so I think we should just let this one drop. And you know what Mike did? He flew into a rage. He got angry. He started throwing things around the room. He says, you know, Joan, you're just not doing what I have always expected you to do. I mean, we have always kind of fallen into line. If the other guy wants to do something, we go ahead and do it. And here's something I really want to do, and you're not doing it. Here we are married for the first time. What's the matter with you? So what do you think Joan did? What would you do in a situation like that? She went right to the airport and flew home. Okay? Now, at home, she talked to her pastor, and his pastor said, well, you know, these things happen, you know, you have these upsetting situations. So I think that, you know, what you need to do is just, you know, forgive each other and move on. So Joan tried to do that. And when they got home, they had fights about what to watch on television. They had fights about how to spend their money. They had fights about what car to buy. They had fights about everything. This whole business of giving each other whatever you want, we'll do all that, came to an end the moment they were married. And then they continued making withdrawals until they were deeply in the red. You know, what's interesting about the love bank is that you can have negative balances. You can go to zero and then just keep right on going, just like a bank account that's overdrawn. And that's what Joan and Mike did. When their accounts reached minus 1,000 love units, they hated each other. Now I want to review something. Our emotions encourage us to be with somebody when his or her love bank balance is positive and warn us to avoid that person when it's negative. So they wanted to be together when they had positive love bank balances. They wanted to be together for life when it was above the romantic love threshold. But they started withdrawing love units at such a rapid pace and did nothing to replace them. The things that they had been doing prior to marriage to replace love units were gone. They didn't do anything to make each other happy. Joan said to me that when we talk, all he does is belittle me. All he does is criticize me. Our conversations used to be great, but now they're absolutely horrible. And Mike said to me, we haven't had sex for 2 years. She doesn't ever come over and give me a hug. She never shows any affection for me. I'm getting nothing out of this marriage. They did nothing to make love bank deposits. I'm going to leave you there for a minute, and we're going to have a short course that I call Romantic Relationships 101. This is a one-unit class. If you don't want to take a test, you can audit, okay? So, here goes. What is a romantic relationship? What is a romantic relationship? I'm going to give you a definition. Remember, you don't have to write this down. It's all on the sheet of paper here. A romantic relationship consists of two people in love who meet each other's needs for intimacy. Two people in love, they've both reached the romantic love threshold, and they're meeting each other's needs for intimacy. Now I have to define, I'm going to go through and define every word. So we're going to go through this definition one word at a time. But by the end of the Romantic Relationships 101, you'll know what this means. You'll know how to apply it to your own marriage. Think about it one more time. A romantic relationship consists of two people in love who meet each other's needs for intimacy. They must be in love with each other, reach the romantic love threshold, and they must be meeting each other's needs for intimacy in the present. So right now, they are in love, they are meeting each other's needs for intimacy. Both conditions must be met, which makes romantic relationships very fragile. All you gotta do is have one guy lose his love for the other guy, bingo, you're not in a romantic relationship anymore. Or at least the way I define it. What is being in love? Let's start there. You gotta be in love, all right? So, what is being in love? Well, there are two kinds of love. Very, very important to understand this about the word love. It means two different things. Romantic love and caring love. Romantic love is a feeling, it's a feeling, make sure you understand that, of incredible attraction to someone of the opposite sex. It is, you're almost addicted to the person. You have a craving for that person. You want that person more than anything in life. Okay? It's a feeling. You usually have good feelings whenever you think about your spouse. The person in love will say yes to that. Would you rather be with your spouse than anyone else? A person in love will say yes to that. Do you enjoy telling your spouse your deepest feelings and most private experiences? A person in love will say yes to that. Do you feel chemistry between you and your spouse? A person in love will say definitely yes. Does your spouse bring out the best in you? Yes, yes, yes. These are questions that I've found are highly correlated with people who have the feeling of love. Romantic love is unmistakable for those that experience it. It's measurable. I've come up with a test to measure romantic love. If the person answers honestly, I know whether they're in love or not. I use that test to determine whether or not couples I'm working with are making progress to fall in love with each other. And when they pass a certain point in the test, I know they're in love. We've achieved our objective. It can be created. I know how to do it. I know how to create romantic love in people. I've done it for years. It can be destroyed, just like Joan and Mike. They destroyed their romantic love for each other. It can be sustained indefinitely. Joyce and I are an example of a couple where for 52 years we have sustained incredible attraction for each other. We've been in love for 52 years. Never lost it. I was in love with her a lot longer than that, but sooner or later I learned a few things. And I was able to raise her love bank, my account, her love bank to a point where she was finally in love with me, and then she agreed to marry me. For the second kind of love, caring love, is not a feeling. Caring love is not how you feel. Caring love is a decision. It's a choice. Caring love is not hoping that someone's needs will be met. It's doing what it takes to meet someone's needs. I can have caring love for anybody. Anybody. I can decide to care for any of you here. And I can decide to do my best to see to it that whatever needs you have can be met. It's a decision. And I can do that for somebody that I don't really care about emotionally. I might not have positive feelings for that person, but I can still care about that person. It's taking personal responsibility for meeting those needs. In James 2:15-16, we read, "Suppose a brother or sister is without clothes and daily food. If one of you says to him, 'Go, I wish you well, keep warm and well fed,' but does nothing about his physical needs, what good is it?" That's a very, very important point to understand about caring love. Caring love is not wanting the person to be happy. Caring love is being personally responsible for seeing to it that it happens. But caring love must be very specific if a married couple wants to sustain romantic love. And you can see where I'm going here. Basically, if you want romantic love, you have to make massive love bank deposits. And you do that by caring for the person that you're married to. But I bring up a very important point here, and that is that it must be very specific. In other words, you can't just do anything to make them happy. You have to do the things that make the most love bank deposits. You're basically, if you're saying that what I'll do is I'll make you comfortable. That won't work. You don't deposit enough love units to trigger romantic love. You've got to do things that make the relationship especially pleasant, especially enjoyable for the other person. You must care for each other in ways that make the largest love bank deposits. Now, I have a background in engineering. And my argument has always been, why do things one way when another way is more efficient? I like efficiency. So on the subject of marriage, the question is, what makes the most love bank deposits? Because I don't want to waste my time doing something that doesn't make very many love bank deposits. I want to do the things that are the most efficient, the most effective. I don't want to meet all of Joyce's emotional needs. I just want to meet enough of them to get above the romantic love threshold. See? And so that's all I need to do. So I can ignore a lot of needs that she might have if I know that meeting certain needs keeps her in love with me all the time. Now, is that the right thing to do? I think so. As an engineer, I would say absolutely. Why waste your time doing things that are less efficient? So I'm going to tell you right now about the most efficient ways of making love bank deposits. And most of the men here will be glad to hear about this. Let's review quickly. What is a romantic relationship? A romantic relationship consists of two people in love who meet each other's emotional needs for intimacy. Now, we've gotten through the part that the people in love. Now we got to talk about the emotional needs for intimacy. I got to explain that to you now. What is an emotional need? What is an emotional need? When I wrote His Needs, Her Needs, and the German translation came back to me, they said that they called it his wants, her wants. I said, no, it's not his wants, her wants. It's his needs, her needs. Now, well, we in Germany don't have the concept of an emotional need. I said, we don't have it in America either. It's something I made up. Okay? An emotional need is something that is a craving that when satisfied leaves us feeling happy and content. When unsatisfied, we feel unhappy and frustrated. It's a very, very important concept to understand. First of all, an emotional need is a craving. You crave it. And you're happy when it's met. You feel contented when it's met. And you feel very frustrated when it's not met. So think about that a minute. Those conditions have to be met when you're talking about each other's emotional needs. If it's not a craving, it's not an emotional need. There are thousands of emotional needs. Some people have emotional need for peanut butter sandwiches. Anybody, I'll take a hands here. Anybody have a craving for peanut butter sandwiches? Anybody? Do you? Yeah, craving. I mean, I have a craving for hamburgers, actually. Especially after I've been on a diet for a while. I can't get them out of my mind, Culver's is what comes to mind. Birthday parties. Monday night football. Which ones make the largest love bank deposits? What makes you the happiest when it's met? And you're the most frustrated when it's not. I discovered the emotional needs that when met makes the largest love bank deposits. I discovered them. I asked hundreds of people what their spouses could do for them that would make them the happiest. Gave him a question, open-ended questionnaire. Just tell me what would make you happy. What could they do for each other that would make the largest love bank deposits? And I didn't give them any hints. I just said, it's open-ended. Give me some ideas. Well, men tended to want sexual fulfillment, recreational companionship the most. They'll say, well, the thing that I've got the most craving for is sex. So when my wife gives me sex, that makes me happy. And when my wife goes out with me on a recreational activity of some kind, I like that. I like her to be a partner with me in my recreational interests. Women tended to want affection and intimate conversation. They said, what I want is a husband who is affectionate. I want him to hug me. I want him to kiss me. I want him to tell me he loves me. I like affection very, very much. And I want him to be able to talk to me. I like conversation. I want him to just tell me how he feels and what he thinks and what he's doing. And I just like to talk. Because their intimate emotional needs were different, husbands and wives did not appreciate the importance of meeting the other person's needs. Many thought that the other person's intimate needs were unnecessary or even silly. Think about that just a minute. If you don't have the need that they've got, doesn't it seem unnecessary? Well, it's unnecessary for you. But your spouse is telling you it's very necessary for him or her. They thought that romance was best defined as meeting their own intimate needs, but not the intimate needs of their spouse. They took shortcuts, wanting their spouse to meet their needs, but not having time or energy to meet their spouse's needs. Now think about it for a moment. Has your spouse ever told you that they're too tired to do something that you need, but your spouse doesn't need? You're not going to hear, I'm too tired, when it's their emotional need. When a guy comes to bed and his wife says, I'd like to talk to you a little bit. Let's talk about something. Oh, I'm just tired of talking. Well, then let's have sex for a while. Oh, that'll work. The basic idea is that you have time and energy for the things that you need the most in life. A romantic evening for a woman was to receive a small gift and a card expressing affection, followed by an evening of dinner and dancing filled with interesting conversation and perhaps a walk along the lake. Doesn't that sound romantic? Oh, yeah. Sound like something you might like to do? Oh, yeah. A romantic evening for a man was watching football on TV together with sex during. Doesn't that sound romantic, you guys? See, men and women have different definitions of romance. See? Here's Charlie Brown offering Snoopy a gift. Here, I guess this is for you. Christmas present from Woodstock. Wow. This is exciting. Wonder what it is. Birdseed. What am I going to do with a package of birdseed? Why give somebody something they can't use? And there is Woodstock with his gift from Snoopy, who doesn't seem to get the point. Isn't that interesting that we tend to give what we value the most, but we can't necessarily understand what the other person values the most. Each spouse did not see that meeting the other spouse's intimate emotional needs kept them in love with each other. So I taught husbands the importance of meeting the wife's intimate emotional needs of affection and intimate conversation, and I taught wives the importance of meeting their husband's intimate emotional needs for sexual fulfillment, recreational companionship. I packaged it all together and I said, that's what a date's going to be for you guys. You're going to have conversation. You're going to have affection. You're going to have a recreational experience, and you're going to make love every time you have a date. And you're going to do it 4 times a week. So when they came in to see me for counseling, okay, Dr. Harley, we'll give it a shot. We'll see what happens. So they come in the next week, and the wife says, you know, Dr. Harley, I think a man should not be telling a woman that she has to have sex with her husband. I don't think that is right. And I said, yeah, but how did it, tell me how it turned out. Well, it did work out okay. You didn't have any unpleasant experiences. No, it was fine. It was good. But I just don't think anybody should be told to have sex. I said, well, did it work? Yeah, I guess it did. All right. I talked to the husband, and he says, I say, you know, how did it go? He says, well, you know, each day was about 4 hours, and I've never had to work so hard in my life just to have sex. See, the interesting thing about the mutuality of the experience was that they were meeting each other's emotional needs when neither one of them felt like doing it, but when they did, and it was mutual, that both of their emotional needs were being met, it worked out great. It worked out good. I just had to give them a little push. I had to help them. And when I started using this technique in my counseling, my clientele skyrocketed.